All right, everybody. All right, I think we're good. Come on in, everybody. I know it's been a while. Thank you all so much for being here. Hopefully, you can hear okay without any echo. I've got some new equipment, so just wanted to welcome you all in and welcome back to the Wives Club. The Wives Club was started in 2021 when I booked a session with the late, great Kevin Samuels. You all know me as Maggie. I make food and femininity content, but I was actually one of the ones who booked a session with Kevin, Mr. Kevin Samuels, because I wanted to talk to him about a way to give back. I didn't book that session for me. I always say I am happily average. Hello, the condemned is here. But I have a heart for the younger women. I'll be 50 this year, and I see myself in a lot of them. And I saw the reaction to his message, and I didn't understand it because I thought it was pretty much common sense if you had a traditional upbringing. But unfortunately, a lot of our ladies haven't. So, if you want traditional marriage and family, like the late great Kevin Samuel said, I believe the older women should teach the young. We actually started the Wives Club in his Patreon in 2021. We would listen to his content during the week, and then we would react to it in a private group because you all know we didn't want to be out here. Oh my goodness, coming in already. Guys, so generous. Thank you, Christopher Williams, for the $9.99. Again, the men have created a safe space for those of us who want to connect and talk to older women who want to talk to younger women who are interested in marriage and family. So thank you. Thank you for being here. The Condemned. Hello, BNS. Thank you so much for being here. I see you all coming in on Instagram as well. And then I see you also on TikTok. Hello, hello, hello. All right. So let me focus here. Thank you, everybody. So, yes, we actually started this in 2021 in the Patreon. Then we moved from the Patreon to the mix on Facebook. Then we moved from the mix on Facebook to YouTube. And I'm still here. And what I like to do is anytime the Kevin Samuels channel releases new content in the form of their monthly videos, I like to react to it from my perspective as an older woman with marriage experience. And I like to teach from what I've done right as well as what I've done wrong in hopes to help those of you all make some better choices. Hello, Gray. Thank you so much for being here. So let's see. The episode that we are reacting to tonight, apologies. The episode we are reacting to tonight is I'm Not Settling. I Choose to Be Single. And this actually came out the first Friday of the month, but with the finishing school, and we're heavy in graduation season now, so I'm a little late getting to you all. Hello, Tariq. Thank you so much for being here. So if you see me looking down, I have my clips in my phone, and we'll just take some time and go over what Kevin said in this episode, some of the women that he talked to, and then I will give, my perspective and like to bring you all into the conversation if you are interested in joining. All right. And as always, I have linked the original episode in the description. So if you want to watch it without my commentary, you are absolutely welcome to do that. All right. So I'm going to scroll back because this one was a lot. Hope everybody's doing well. I think I scrolled too far. Okay. So Kevin in this episode, like he had often done, was talking about how as much as we talk about relationships, and I know some people are, over it already, but this is the human condition. And I know we like to think, especially in this modern times, we have all these devices and, maybe we're different. Maybe we're 2.0 versions of ourselves, AI versions of ourselves. But if you're a real person in the real world, I think we are better together. And I'll speak for myself and speak for the ladies that I teach. We do want marriage and family. Not all. and that's fine. This message isn't for you. But this conversation is not going to go away. This is the human condition. This is why we exist. And Kevin was talking about, even though his channel was getting all of this, headlines, he said, I've heard it all since the 80s. We've been having these conversations on college campuses and debating each other and all of that. What does Tariq say? The truly traditional woman does not claim equality, for she recognizes the spiritual superiority of a man as a cosmic principle. Thank you for sharing. And, whatever your faith, whatever you believe, I think we're more alike than we are different. And you all often hear me say, we are not equal. We are equally valued, but we are very different. And ladies, if you want a man, if you want a masculine man, that is something that we are going to have to accept, that men are born to lead. I think that's where they're strongest. And we are born to be a support system to that. And if that doesn't sit well with you, that's fine. But you're gonna find yourself struggling to exist in a world where, can you do it? Sure. Do you want to do it for the long haul? You got to ask yourself that. I would argue that the answer is no. I know I didn't. And I'm a big professional lady too. All right, let's continue on. So Kevin was the master of the facts, data, and statistics, and he talked about how the data says that, unfortunately, especially in our community, ladies, we are not doing well in the area of being selected for marriage and family. And if that's what you want, we have to know that the odds are stacked against us. Ask yourself, why is that? If that's your story, why hasn't it happened for you? Be honest with yourself, but know that, ladies, this howling at the moon and arguing with everybody, it's not helping us. I think in our community have a 25% chance of getting married. And so if that's important to you, that means that you're going to have to work hard to stand out for the right reasons, especially in your prime, because it only gets harder as you get older. So Kevin talked a lot in this episode about women that are 30, 35 plus, attractive, unmarried, and single. And, it puzzled him why this was the case. He talked often in this episode about how we have chosen the rat race instead of chosen to be attractive to the type of man that we ultimately want. And I can hear some women now immediately saying, it doesn't have to be about a man. That's fine. Find me when you're 50. Ladies, we're just not built for the long haul. And if you don't believe me, ask the 30, 35, 40, and 50-year-old women in your community, in your family, how many of them are gung-ho about that big job or that big promotion the way we were in our youth, right? Thank you so much for being here, Discipled One. I appreciate it. All right. So he said that when we chase this professional success, which there's nothing wrong with that. Yes, we're smart. Yes, we can be accomplished. That's fine. Maybe you can do both. Some of us can. But when you prioritize that over family, what happens is we are taking on that masculine role, that alpha role that I think is designed for men. They're naturally better at it. We can do it, but we have to work really hard at it to maintain or even stay competitive. And what that does to your femininity, what that chips away at your attractiveness to the kind of men that you ultimately want, you have to ask yourself if it's worth it. He said that men have accepted that. And you know what's funny, ladies? When I talk to my man, you'll hear me call him Mr. President. It's funny that we as women have this story in our head that men just love it. They are having this good old boys club, wheeling and dealing and smoking cigars and living life, and they love it. If you ask the men that you admire and respect, the work that they do is a means to an end. They do it because they have to, and they have accepted that mantle, that burden, but they don't love that backbreaking work. They don't love getting up at the crack of dawn. They don't love working with people that they cannot stand, reporting to a boss that they do not like, but they do that because that is what is required of them to have the life and the outcome that they want. So be careful painting this picture that it's going to be great, because what we see is a lot of women will push themselves towards these big careers, and then you get there and you realize, I hate it here. I'm miserable. Like me, the pandemic set me down and I realized how much happier I was at home. But you couldn't tell me anything before. I was big executive, clicking my heels through the office, just thought that's what life was supposed to be. So again, if you want relationship, you're going to have to ask yourself if what you've been pursuing is working for you. So, the big question that Kevin had in this episode, when we listen to women who say, I'm single by choice, he asked them, okay, can you not be single? Meaning, ladies, if you are choosing to be single, and that's your right, nobody's going to fight you, you can do whatever you want to do. Can you snap your fingers and say, okay, I'm ready for a relationship now? And it's going to happen with the caliber of men that you want. All right. Sherry says, not for me. I enjoy being single. That is fantastic. I am so happy that you know that now, and I wish you all the best. Taylor, yes, I am. All right. So, ladies, what we have to realize, if you want relationship from the type of man that you admire and respect, men are the ones that offer relationships. What I tell my students is men ask, we can either accept with grace or we exit with grace. And if you don't believe me, find any woman who made that man marry her that she admires and respects. I think, ladies, sometimes we have this thought in our head that we can do anything, we can do it all. And when we're ready, we're just going to snap our fingers and the man of our dreams is going to appear. But oftentimes what you find with these women who are 30, 35, 40, now that they've done everything they want to do for as long as they want to do it, they are struggling to find and keep the masculine man of their dreams because they haven't built relationship skills. And the cop out, respectfully, is, oh, I'm single by choice. Oh, I'm this or I'm that. But I think if we're being honest with ourselves, the human condition, like I said in the beginning, is to want love, marriage, if you believe in that, a family, an intact family. As we get older, that's the only thing that can sustain us. I mean, if you can do it and you have these big accomplishments, that's great. I've been laid off 5 times. It just happens in the tech space. I always land back on my feet. But what I realize is every time I have to start that search over, I want it less and less. But what has maintained is a relationship over decades. All right. Taylor, we're talking about relationships here. You can inbox me. The Condemned is saying, I will elaborate on the work us men do. We love doing that grueling work for women that appreciate it and want to return the favor. We will find all the ways to like and love the work for that woman. Thank you so much for saying that. And it's so true. What does Discipled One say? Men are working for a means to an end. Quoting Maggie, your preaching robe must be invisible, but I can hear the preaching coming out. Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that. But for me, hello, PMW. For me, it's true, ladies. I mean, a man is a man and he's going to be on his purpose and he is going to go forth and conquer whatever his gift and whatever his calling is. However, dare I say, and I don't speak for men because I am not a man, but I have seen and I have heard, like the Condemned is saying here, men are inspired by us. We're not going to change them, ladies. They're going to do it with or without us. But we can be that shot in the arm. We can be that support system. We can be, their number one fan, like I try to be. We can be the reason why they get up and hit the bricks every day to come home to a warm and welcoming wife, a calm and quiet home, happy children, if that's what you want. If you don't, that's totally fine. You can do your own thing. All right. So ask yourself, ladies, if you have been the ones to say, I'm single by choice, fine. Can you be unsingle, if that's a word, when you want to? All right. And the mic drop moment in this episode is when Kevin said, "You're not single. Your choices have made you single." So, again, especially the young ladies who are thinking, I got all the time in the world. You don't. Believe me, the years start going faster and faster the more time that you waste. And I tell the ladies that I talk to, if you want marriage and family, prioritize that first. You can do all the other stuff once you have a relationship sorted. School, job, business, travel, all of that. But you have a very small window to have the outcome that you want if you want a life with a masculine man. All right. So Kevin said that we are not single by choice. Our choices have made us single. So, ladies, we have to take that accountability. Does that resonate with you? And he said, "You know how I know you're not single by choice?" He said, "Because you come to the comments to argue." And that one kind of hurt, but it's true. I mean, in the South, we say a hit dog will holler. I know that's a little violent. If you're of faith, pastors coming down your row and stepping on your toes. But if it doesn't apply, let it fly. Um, it's fascinating to me how much time and energy people spend publicly disagreeing. If you don't agree, that's totally fine. Go to the spaces where you do agree. But Kevin was saying in his space, he had so many people coming at him that were saying whatever they wanted to say, but that meant that it struck a nerve with you. That meant that it struck a chord. You didn't really feel good about him talking about relationships. And you can ask yourself why. I will tell all of y'all, I know I need a man. I am so grateful for the covering that I have. I would be all over the place. I'm just an extrovert like that. And so I love the structure that a man brings. So if you want to do it all by yourself, that's fine. But ask yourself when you're 60, 65, 70, if you really mean what you say. We got Suave D coming through with the $5. Thank you all so much. So generous. The Condemned says, I never heard a woman say there, oh, shoot. I've never heard a woman say she's married by choice. Ladies, that is a mic drop moment. So again, we control access to our bodies. Men control access to relationships. That's just how it is. So, I mean, unless you want to be the man, but I can't help you if that's the case. So, yes, ladies, you're not going to wrestle him to the ground. You're not going to threaten him. You're not going to, throw a pity party or have an emotional fit or give him an ultimatum or all these things that women do to try and strong arm him into getting what you want. Men hunt, they know what they're looking for, and when they find it, they approach. Your job is to be ready, choose wisely, and either accept with grace or exit with grace. But either way, it's your choice, okay? So be ready if that's what you want. All right, so are you single by choice? Can you be married by choice? So again, Kevin had said in this episode, and it's kind of hard to hear, especially now knowing how things have gone. He said that the lies have been dispelled. All the things that we used to say about men, they are, all over, town doing everything with everybody. They're, not able to provide. They're, socially awkward, all of these things. But the data shows that, ladies, other women find our men valuable. And the time of thinking we were entitled to our men, that ship has probably sailed. We live in the modern world, and that's one of the things that now anybody can be with anybody, which means we really have to outperform because we're not just competing with each other anymore, if that's important to you. So Kevin asked again in this episode, okay, if you don't want that man that you say is a nerd or a dork or whatever you would want to say about him, can you get the man that you do want? Ladies, we all have that man in our minds. It's kind of like, oh yeah, he's my type. I've got a crush on him. He's everything. He checks all 34 things off of my list. So when you have been found by, or when you encounter that man that is everything, can you get him? And if not, why not? So you just have to ask yourself that. We have to be honest and we have to be realistic about who we are and what we have to offer that the men that we want find valuable, not just because we think it's great. All right. So moving on in this episode, Kevin said, okay, I'm not going to argue with you, ladies. You're single by choice. Fine. Do whatever you want to do. He said, what advice would you give to the younger women? So for those of us that are older and saying relationships aren't important, I'll do my own thing, fine. If a younger woman did not want to follow that path and did not want to be single by choice, what would your advice be to her? Crickets. And again, we have to ask ourselves, and it's a rhetorical question. It's not really one that you would answer, but it really just reinforces the fact that we can't choose to be unsingle whenever we want to. And one of the things that I see, especially on social media with younger women, you get a lot of attention and you think, oh, men are just, at my beck and call all the time. 2 points. Number one, that's not going to be forever. Ask any older, single, attractive woman. She can remember a time when that phone was ringing. She can remember a time when she went out and drinks were paid for. She can remember a time when she was the belle of the ball. And now things are very different. That's one thing. And then two, dare I say, yes, we're going to age out of that phase. You may get a lot of attention, ladies, but are you able to discern the difference between attention and intention? You can walk down the street and men can catcall and whistle, if they even do that anymore. I'm old. But you can have men in your DMs. Let's bring it back to the modern times. You can have men in your DMs. You can have men buy you things. You can have men fly you out. You can have men spend time with you, be intimate with you. Do they plan a future that includes you? Do you know? And if the answer is no, that's also an answer. Code King wants to ask something. Yes, you can ask a question. All right, let's continue on. All right, so if you're single by choice, what would you tell a younger woman who doesn't want to be single? And I'll tell you, and I am not single by choice. I tell my young women, especially 25 and under, and I'm so glad we have several that realize young that they want marriage and family. And I know the modern world will have you thinking that that's antiquated and, who does that anymore? Believe me, when you get older, you will be glad that you prioritized marriage and family in your prime. And here's another pro tip, ladies, even as a divorcee, you all know my story. I married young. Big old college and career had me thinking, I was, my accomplishments mattered. My ex-husband and I co-parent really well. I've been in a long term since then. But what I realize now from talking to the men that I admire and respect, even as a divorcee, the fact that I prioritized marriage and family in my youth, even if the worst happens and the marriage doesn't last, that says a lot about what we do when we have our leverage. And I think this is a point that a lot of older women miss, because in our minds, yeah, I'm 50-year-old Maggie this year. I still kind of feel like, teenage or 25-year-old Maggie, but I'm not. I don't have the same pull, the same leverage. So the decisions that you make, young ladies, when you do have all odds in your favor, say a lot about you for life. All right. So let's continue on. All right. So now Kevin starts bringing on the women to talk to, and there were two in this episode. One we've seen before, But the other one, the first one was new to me. All right. So she was saying that she wants to be in a relationship, yes. But she said, I have to allow myself to trust a man to lead. And to me, that's really sad, especially to hear from young women. You know, Kevin often talked about um, having, what was it, positive intent. And when you're young, you really haven't had that much experience. So either you're believing in the boogeyman that other people have told you about, or unfortunately, you have had a lot of experiences and now you're damaged from all that heartbreak. Ladies, let's just tell the truth. Everybody's going to get their heart broken. Everybody's going to be told no at some point in life. But if you circle back to what I said about choosing wisely, you don't open yourself up to just any man. You really know how to vet if he is marriage minded, if he is thinking for the long term, or if he's just trying to be here right now. That way you can remove yourself and exit with grace so you don't become somebody who is having difficulty allowing themselves to trust a man to lead. Because what happens, ladies, is then you meet the one that is everything, but you're so broken and so hurt, then you're putting all of that disappointment and expectation on him. And he didn't do anything. And so a man who has prepared himself for marriage and family is not going to drag you across the finish line. He's just going to let you sit there and figure out why you continue to be alone. So again, choose wisely. I say that for a reason. All right. Kevin said in this episode to this young lady, he said, if you're not trusting, then you're not willing. And I think this is a mistake I see with a lot of modern women. It's like we expect men to do these Herculean acts of, you got to prove who you are to me, and then maybe I'll trust you. Maybe I'll give you some attention. Well, men prove their worth by their accomplishments on the world stage, meaning they demonstrate who they are. Everybody can see it because we are attracted to that success if we're being honest with ourselves. And men know that. That's why they have to go out and get it before they can present themselves to the woman that they're taking seriously. Because as we should, we are not going to hitch our wagon to somebody who is unstable. We should not do that, ladies. All right. So when he's proven himself to you, believe me, he's proven himself to the world, to other people as well. So you've got to be ready when he's ready, if that's what you want. All right. He asked her a question about, in the mating and dating space, do we listen to the seller or do we listen to the consumer? And, you know, this boils down to, I'm not going to get into the rating and worth and all of that. But again, remember, ladies, men are the ones that establish relationships. They are the ones that say, that's my woman. They are the ones that say, that's my fiance, that's my missus, that's my wife. You can say that all you want to, doesn't make it so. So if that's the case, if men are the ones that are buying, if we want to be taken off the market, we have to be what the seller wants, which means we have to know and understand and provide that consistently if you want to be taken off the market. Oh, thank you so much, Swati, for the $5. You all are so generous. Thank you. I appreciate it. All right. So the conversation continued on, and one of the women was complaining about intimacy and other things. But here's the thing, ladies. What you have to realize is this casual dating, this hookup culture, this just dating for years and decades, all it is about the intimacy. If you think that having this, you know, fast moving hookup culture will lead to marriage, I don't know, maybe lightning can strike, but excuse me, my experience is that the men who are serious about relationships will lead with their intentions and lead with the seriousness first. And if you aren't prepared for that, if you don't know what it looks like when a man is vetting you seriously, you're going to think, oh my gosh, he's so controlling. Oh my gosh, he's coming on so strong. Oh my gosh, he's doing all these things. Well, ladies, the truth is, the men that go for the fireworks from the beginning, that's where it's going to stay. They don't have any long term intentions for you. The men who are serious about us know that all the fun stuff will come later. So they're going to vet us to make sure we are the caliber of woman, that we have the character that will bring honor to their name and their legacy. The other stuff is great, but that's not going to be the first thing. So if you are finding yourself being approached by men who lead with that, you have to really ask yourselves, why is that the most important thing to them? And then you have a choice to make. It's totally up to you. All right. So that's all I'll say about that. There were some other things that she talked about. And I'll just say this, ladies, we have to be very careful, throwing around abuse and other things that are very serious topics. Because he asked her a question. He said, was there a police report? And she said, no. And I'll just say this, again, I am not an expert, and I want to tread lightly in this space. But ladies, if that ever happens, it is nothing to throw around lightly. Um, Men take that very, very seriously. And so be prepared to have to answer questions about that if, when the conversation gets a little heated about your past, and you're quick to say, oh, he was abusive, he was narcissistic, he was controlling. They're going to start either asking some questions that you probably should be prepared to answer if you want to stick around, or they're just going to say, you know what, let me just find somebody else that's got less baggage. So the way you think a man is going to react, the way your girlfriends will, and circle up and say, oh, there, poor girl, let me protect you. No, men are cost benefit um, calculators, and they're looking at everything as a risk. And so if you come from a chaotic background, they're going to ask themselves, do I want to hitch my wagon to this for the next 50 years? And even worse, if they start pressing you for answers and the story starts to fall apart, you've lost your credibility. It's a wrap. So be very careful about how you explain the decisions that you've made, ladies. What does the condemn say? A vetting question that I ask is, what was your most recent high cost purchase? Why was it worth it? All right, ladies, trying to think. What did I spend money on, and was it worth it? I don't know. So again, you can answer or not answer. I'll have to think about that one because I'm pretty frugal. But ladies, again, the men that are thinking about a lifetime with us do want to know about our habits, our patterns, what we do when times get tough, how we relieve stress, the type of entertainment we consume. All the going out and getting dressed up and having fun, that will come once they know that you are a serious contender. All right, let's see what else you all are saying here. Discipled One says, provide that constantly to be taken off the market. Bury this in your heart, ladies. Maggie just dropped a solid gold relationship nugget. Aw, yeah, it's true. And the more that I talk to women and the more that I listen to men, I realize how differently they make decisions. And so it would behoove us, ladies, to understand that if you want a relationship with a man. If not, you can be single by choice. Nobody's going to stop you. All right. So be careful about the language that you use. Be careful about the ways that you're just flippant about things that men take very seriously. And this woman was talking about how she had a boyfriend in college that was serious about her, wanted her for marriage. She had some type of family, life emergency or something like that. And then just kind of, let it slip out of her fingers. And he asked her, after this thing got sorted out, did you get back with him? And she was just kind of like, no. And that is the tragedy for me, especially older, attractive, single women. You don't have to tell me, but almost all of them that I talk to have a regret about the one that got away, one that they didn't take seriously, one that they thought, oh, there'll be another one. And then they found out there's not another one. Ladies, you get one, maybe two, if you're very lucky, options to have the outcome that you want. So that's why I really harp on my young women, 25 and under. I was married at 25, married my college boyfriend. That's not uncommon. So beware of people, and I'll even say, older women, as an older woman, that will tell you, you got time, what's the rush, live your life. Be very careful. The 30 and 40 and 50-year-old version of you will not have the options that you have in your 20s, believe me. All right. So, one of the things that he also said in this episode is that as women, modern women now, we are not doing a good job maintaining relationships. And I don't know if it's all of this masculine um, ambition that we have. And that's great that we're smart. That's great that we work hard. That's great that we are accomplished. I would just say, be very careful where you put your best efforts, ladies, because it hit me. I was thinking about this. You can be taking care of somebody's kids. Maybe it's your own with your husband, or maybe it's your boss's kids that you're helping put through private school. Like my man will tell you, Mr. President will tell you, you're going to be listening to somebody. So why not listen to a husband who loves you and cares for you, or, you know, a manager or a boss who is, basically here to get a job done and you're a number on the balance sheet. So we are not going to get away from that accountability, ladies. Life is going to find a way to humble us. So, again, I just implore the women who want marriage and family, prioritize it in your prime. Believe me. All right. Um, he said also in this episode that we are too complex. And I see that, especially, with older women. I know life brings so much experience, but at our core, ladies, and this is one of the things that I tell the ladies that I talk to, is to do less and be more. Does that mean that you lay around all day? Absolutely not. Does that mean that you are lazy? Absolutely not. But we are raising our young girls to be competitive in the workforce just like a man. Can you work? Absolutely. Should you work? You should work at something, believe me. But it has caused us to lose that feminine essence that is fluid, that is nurturing, that is warm and welcoming and kind. And what should be a simple, beautiful experience in relationship with a woman has now got all of this confusion and all of this complication and all this baggage from the past and just all of this stuff that, ladies, men don't want. Why? Because their life is already complex. The men that we want, the men that we respect and admire, there's always a challenge for them, always a problem to solve, an enemy at the gate. Somebody's trying to take their business, take their woman, take their home. There's just always fight mode as soon as they leave the door. And I didn't realize that. Men do a really good job of just kind of putting on that game face because, again, in the beginning, remember we said that they have accepted this is what is required to be a man. So they don't want to come home to that. They don't want to have to deal with that out there and then come home and deal with it again in here. So if you're in relationship, I always say, ladies, if your mother didn't teach you how to be a good woman to a good man, simple is better. You may call it boring. You may call it uneventful. Believe me, it is pure gold to the man that you want. I'll give you all an example. I laugh at it. You all know I have a cooking channel and I love testing new recipes and doing all this elaborate stuff. And I remember I used to ask Mr. President, can I try this new recipe? And he was like, no. I eat the same three things. I wear the same three things. I want the same three things. And I was like, oh my gosh. But what he said next really struck me. He said, everything else is complicated. I need this to be simple. So ladies, listen to your man when he talks to you. When he gives you feedback like that, don't get offended at how he said it. Realize that in the chaotic world that he deals with every day, you can be that consistent, soft place to fall, that warm and welcoming presence that he wants to come home to. That is the key. All right. So we're trying to compete with men in this world. We have this fear in us because we don't think that we can trust a man to lead us. Maybe you can't. I'm sorry. I will say when you finally let go and you don't have all that burden on you, it is so freeing. But I understand it's not for everybody. So that negativity is going to come forth. And again, you'll just have to ask yourself if that is what you think you're built for the long haul. Oh my goodness, what are you all saying here? Discipled One coming in with the $20. We have a new stream sponsor. Thank you. Saying, do less and be more. Every woman should endeavor to do this. If a woman knows how to be, a man will give you the world. Ah, thank you. I love it when the men in this space confirm. I'm just sharing from my own lived experience, but ladies, it's true. Men don't want all the chaos, all the details, all the complications. Save that for your girlfriend. Save that for your social events. But around the man that you respect and admire, less is more, and he will come to you. Believe me, when he comes up for air, he will find his woman. All right. So don't create a problem that isn't there. All right. So the next woman who called in, and the final woman who called in, she was a truck driver with 4 children, never married. She had 3 teenagers and a 2-year-old. And he asked some tough questions about this. But one of the things that stood out to me with this woman who was the truck driver and the younger woman who said, I'm struggling allowing a man to lead, he asked them a question. Something as simple as, do you think there's enough women for a relationship? And without even missing a beat. Well, my problem is, and they started going into their whole narrative that they have. Ladies, my man has said it. We women, we have a movie constantly playing in our head. And we have to be very careful, especially when communicating with men, because he was like, okay, but that's not what I asked you. Men are very direct. So if you asked a direct question, it's best for us to give a direct answer. And I notice this often with women. It's almost like you got to snap them out of it and say, I asked you a question. So, again, ladies, that self-awareness and that being present in the moment, doing less, having less of that chaos and being more will allow you to respond instead of react, will allow you to receive, will allow you to communicate in a way that is effective. And that's what builds a relationship. That's what we're naturally better at if we allow ourselves to be. All right. Disciple One says, don't create a problem that isn't there. Every man will shout hallelujah to this. Oh my goodness. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm trying. I hope it's helpful. All right. So this woman, he asked her, what is a man's I think he asked her at first about relationships. And she just went into, well, here's my story. He was like, okay, I didn't ask you that. So the next question he asked her, let's try this again. What is a man's purpose? What are you telling your daughter? Because I don't know how many of each she had, but she had teenage sons and daughters. And he told her later on in the call, he said, ma'am, you have children that are of the age that they can get pregnant or get someone pregnant, and it just kind of shook me to the core because you all know I'm a mom of 2 teenage boys and we have had that talk. I let their dad handle it, but I tell them, and I'll tell you just as a mom, I tell both of the boys, I don't care who she is. You like what you like, but she has to respect you. That is a non-negotiable, because if she doesn't respect you, it's just going to be a nightmare for the rest of the relationship. So we also teach our boys that you got to go out there and build yourself and come back and present yourself as somebody that has earned that respect, but she has to respect you. That's the only thing. And she should come from a good family. All right. So he was asking this trucker, what is a man's purpose? And she was struggling to answer. And what she answered was actually, she said, a man's purpose is to be an emotional support. Ladies, that's incorrect. That's what our girlfriends are for. Men are here to lead. Men are here to be on their purpose. They are here to build, to conquer, and to create. That is one of the reasons why I say we're not equal. And if you don't know this, watch boys. I have learned so much by being a boy mom. The way they play, the way they forge out into the unknown, it is just hardwired into them. So again, that's why we have to be able to discern, is this man going in the direction that I want to hitch my wagon to for life or not? We are the emotional support system, ladies. That is our natural gift. How many times have men just said something matter of fact? I've been on the receiving end of some very harsh feedback. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that was so mean. And the men are like, what? It's the truth though. We're the ones, ladies, that are naturally nurturing if we allow ourselves to be. We're the ones that nurture the relationship. We are the ones, I like to say, can you take ingredients and make it a meal? Can you take a house and make it a home? Can you take a conversation and make it uplifting? Can you turn, a regular encounter into something that is inspirational? I think that is our natural gift. So we all have something that we're better at. But if you expect a man to be emotionally, what did she say? An emotional support system. Can he do it? Yes. Will he be able to do it consistently as good as a woman? I don't think so. I could be wrong though. Likewise, can we build and conquer and, have empires and create all these things? Yes. Can we do it for the long haul the way that men can in mass? I don't think so. Of course, there are exceptions. Of course, there are women that are like, you know what? I'm going to be one of the boys. I'm happy for them. I can't do it. And most of the women that I talk to, if you're honest with yourself, ladies, once you've had about 10 plus years in the work world after that, it's all the same. You've seen it all. Am I saying not to work? No. But I am saying don't put that ahead of your marriage and family ever. All right. So he asked this single mother about her perspective on relationships, what she's telling her teenage children about men. And here comes the fear again. She actually said out of her own mouth, I tell them to avoid the opposite sex. And to me, that's tragic. Thank you for the love. Hello, Jessica. To me, that's tragic to have the only message. If your kids were to ask you about relationships or you had the opportunity to talk about relationships, your advice is, well, just avoid them. That's not realistic, ladies. And, someone on here was asking about faith, but this woman, the trucker, was saying, we talk about the Bible. That's great. But I do believe it's our responsibility to equip our children for the real world. Excuse me, these modern times that we live in, absolutely you should make good choices, but putting your head in the sand and just saying, la, 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 I'm going to avoid people, that's really the mom projecting her hurt and her disappointment on her children who haven't experienced anything, but now they're going out into the world without positive intent because mom told them, there's a boogeyman out there and he's going to take advantage of you. And to me, that's sad. Yes, you should be smart. Yes, you should make wise decisions. But I think a blanket instruction to avoid people, that just goes against how we are wired. We are naturally wired to want to pair up for life. We are naturally wired to want to do this thing called life together. And I do think we're better together. So he told her, and this may hurt, but he said a lot of the single moms that he talks to are defensive. And ladies, everybody's got a story that'll bring a tear to your eye. If you've been through divorce, it's gut wrenching, but we have to know that that is our experience, deal with it, whether you do therapy or prayer or meditate or whatever you do, and then go out into the world and look for the best. I know I'm a natural optimist. Most men are realists, but what we shouldn't do is be a pessimist, especially when it comes to our children. That's unfair to them. They deserve the same opportunity in life to have a chance at a successful outcome. So he asked her, "What are you telling your children?" And she said, "Just live life to the fullest." Ladies, a lot of that is cliche, and we could say all of those things, right? Just be happy, just be a good person, just do unto others as you would have them do to you. All of these things are fine, but as parents, it is our responsibility to prepare our children. And he said, "You're too old for that. We're too old to be saying, just go be great." He said, "Life is vegetables," meaning the real world is real work. And we have a lot of work that we have to do. We need to tell our children that real relationships are going to be real work. Hopefully, they've seen it at home. That's why I'm so passionate about the family. I had no idea growing up in an intact traditional family would teach me without teaching me that life is better together, and we go through the ups and downs and we stay together and we hold on. Even my ex-husband, we're forever family. Marcus is graduating next month, and we're planning things, and dinner and celebrations and all of those things. Just because the marriage didn't last doesn't mean that we don't prioritize the children that we've created over our hurt feelings or whatever happened decades ago, right? Project Queen says, "Be willing to do the boring things." I love that. And the things that you call boring now, ladies, especially young ladies, when you get my age, believe me, that will be a comfort to you. You will want a man who is consistent. You will want a man who means what he says and says what he means. You will want a man who is reliable. You will want a man that you can close your eyes and just know he's gonna fix it. I don't have to know all the details. So you can call it boring now, or you can hitch your wagon to that roller coaster ride. I know some women like that. They get off on the thrill of it's unpredictable. I don't know what's going to happen today. Is it going to be fire hot or ice cold? I think that fizzles out over time. So, especially young ladies, you want to make the decisions now that you'll be proud of when you're older. And I know when you listen to a woman that's almost 50, it seems like forever and ever. Don't listen to me. If you're in your 20s, talk to the 30-year-olds that you know. If you're in your 30s, talk to 40-year-olds that you know. If you're in your 40s, then come ask me, all right? So he was asking her, "All right, fine. Live life to the fullest. Are you thriving?" And she said, "Oh, yes, I'm thriving." And he started to ask more questions. You all know how Kevin Samuels was. And he says, in our community, we have confused thriving with surviving. And yes, she was a truck driver and she made six figures, and that's great. But he asked her, "How can you live a full life without a man?" Now, I can hear some of the feminists howling at the moon now. Fine. If you don't want a man in your life, so be it. But most of us want that love, want that enduring relationship, want somebody who's going to care that you are well, notice you when you walk into a room, someone who's going to be invested in you. Um, there's nothing that can replace that. You can try. People are trying now, and I don't think they're getting the outcomes that they really want. So, now she has all these kids, and he said, "That's the father that you chose." Because she tried to say, well, the men this and the men that. But ladies, again, we're not going to escape this accountability. You have to be very intentional. And this is a woman who went overseas and had a relationship with a man who was not available. And now you have a kid and he's in one continent, you're in another continent. And again, she's telling this story like, woe is me. And Kevin, like men do, say, you chose that. And I know we can get our feelings hurt, ladies, but that's how men look at it. And when we ask ourselves why, that's because that's how harshly the world judges them. Men aren't going to get somebody to say, "Oh, I'm so sorry. You didn't have, um, you didn't have, a perfect upbringing. We understand." No, they're like, "We don't care. Get it together." We got Missy Michon in the house with the 9.99. She says, "Thanks for all you do." Thank you. Y'all, please check out Missy Michon, another content creator, my secret pleasure. Hilarious. Hilarious. She reacts to pop culture. So thank you for the 9.99. Project Queen says you have single friends crying for it. And that's true. And ladies, I don't take any pleasure in saying this. I am here until I'm not. And I implore you, if you want marriage and family, you got to open your mouth and say so. Closed mouths don't get fed. Stop pretending that we're tough. Stop pretending that it doesn't matter. It matters. Believe me, there's nothing better than having a true, genuine relationship if that's what you want. So you have to be intentional about it. You have to be willing to be called a pick me. I am called constantly a pick me, and I am pick me proud. But you have to be willing to be that salmon swimming upstream. You have to be willing to say, you know what? No, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to wear that. I'm not going to drink that, smoke that. I'm not going to say that. You have to be willing to stand out for the right reasons because, as you know, watching my content, the men are always watching, always watching. Ulysses says, "That's the absolute truth. Remind me what I said. I've forgotten it already." Thank you for the hand claps, Jessica. I appreciate that. Project Queen says, "Stability is longevity." Absolutely. Absolutely. You all are agreeing. Discipled One says, "You can't plant tomato seeds and have it come up corn. What are you planting in your children?" And that's the one that just gets to me as a mother. The boys are 15 and 17. They've got their whole life ahead of them. And, even though, I'll never forgive myself for being a divorcee, but I have, hopefully by my actions, shown them the value of what I've done and what I've not done because it's important. Project Queen says, "Lift up and forgive your spouse." Absolutely. Especially those of us, if you have, if you're a divorcee or you have children and for whatever reason the relationship didn't work, that's still their father. And you chose him. So continue to honor him. And if there's anything that the children are going to find out, let them find out on their own. Don't let it be you. Don't let it be you, the one that is poisoning the well. All right. That is something that I'm very proud of. My ex-husband and I, we still have family meetings. Just had a meeting about Marcus's senior trip. We were both on the Teams meeting with the teacher. All right. Condemns a shout out to the pygmies. All right, let's wrap this up. So, again, ladies, this is the man that you chose. All right, so we have to be responsible for our own actions. He said something else about single mothers. He said, "Women without a man live through their kids." And this one was hard to hear. But, ladies, he was talking about this woman that had I'll mess it up, but like 15, 17, 13-year-old, and then a 2-year-old. And what he was saying is that it's not uncommon. And I didn't know this because he asked her, "Did you plan these children?" And what he has seen is that instead of putting our best effort into a real relationship that we cannot control with the type of men that you admire and respect, instead we choose to have children and create a life that we can control because the man is not there and these kids are going to do what I say. And the fact that now that the kids are becoming teenagers, and you all know if you have teenagers, they get their social life and then they move on. Then you have another baby so you can start all over again. And you build this life around your kids instead of with a man that's going to hold you accountable and ask you some tough questions. So, ladies, you can ask yourself, I didn't know it was that common. I can't imagine starting over. Some people do it intentionally, but you have to ask yourself, what is the reason that not an oops when you were young, but you continue to do this 4 times over? All right. So We already know. I'm not going to go down the single mother rabbit hole. Kevin talked about that a lot. But ladies, it does make it harder. He said when you have children outside of marriage, it just makes it harder. I mean, I'm not going to argue. You can say what you want to, but ask the men. Um, it just does. All right. So be very careful about that. So again, he said, what message are you giving your sons and your daughters? You're setting them up to live a life of fear. And we are surviving and not thriving. All right, so let me just check my notes. We'll wrap this up here. He did ask her if she did this on purpose, because he said, I find it interesting that in all this baby making, there's nobody to check you. And ladies, it's true. The men that we want, they're not going to let us get away with just anything and everything. And I love the covering. I like being in the ring of fire. I need to know, okay, I can do this, but I can't do that. And this is why the nuclear family is so important. If you haven't ever seen that, the first time a man tells you no, then you're going to lose it because who are you to talk to me? But those of us, I'm thinking about one of my students who came to me. She married at 21, baby number 4 is on the way. And she sent me this beautiful message. She said, you've helped me appreciate the frame my husband has created for me. And she says, there's a lot of freedom in the frame. And I love the way that she said that. So if you want to do whatever you want to do and can't nobody tell you anything, fine. But remember you made that decision. And when you're trying to figure out how to get your life in order, the men that we want are going to remind us, but you didn't want anybody asking you questions. You didn't want anybody telling you what to do. So you figure it out. And I don't think you want to be on the receiving end of that, ladies. Maybe you do, but I don't think so. I love this. He said, every culture partners together. And that's true, ladies. I mean, whatever your faith, whatever you come from, wherever you come from, if you look, in the past, this is not something that we need to convince ourselves of. We've all been part of marriages, which make part of families, which make part of communities, which make part of societies. That is the building block. And north, south, east, or west, you're going to find that everybody may do the ceremony a little bit different, but travel around the world, you'll see. This whole I can do everything by myself and I don't need anybody, that's very modern. Most older people, my mom still asks me to this day when I bring friends around, is she married? Does she have any children? That's just how we are. All right. So let's see. We talked about teaching our kids to thrive instead of just survive. He talked about fear. You all may have heard the acronym, especially those of you in faith, false evidence appearing real. So be careful, ladies. If you find your language has this kind of like, well, I don't know, I can't trust, well, what if this happens? You can ask yourself, is it your real lived experience, or have you just heard that this happened to somebody on the internet, and so now you're on the lookout for it to happen to you? I would argue if that you learn to choose wisely and vet properly, you can avoid a lot of the mistakes. Is it perfect? No, but we won't have the chaos that we allow to have happen. All right. So again, Kevin was talking about once we have children, it's not about us. Our responsibility is to the lives that we brought into the world, and we have to teach them how to thrive, not just survive, and that there is a hierarchy. If you're a Christian, like you said, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, the Trinity. But he said, man, woman, child. That is how it's been for hundreds and for thousands of years. So I think what's happening with a lot of modern women, if we're being very honest, we don't want anybody to tell us what to do. So we just omit the husband part and just say, you know what? I'm the head of the household. I'm the boss here. Okay. Oh, there was one more. Speaking of boss, the last lady that called in said that, women are queens. And Kevin went through this whole process with her to reinforce the point. How many queens are there in any given country? We have to be very careful slapping these labels on when we haven't earned it, ladies. That is not something that anybody can just call themselves a queen. And the point he was making is that a queen is the king's wife. So we're over here saying we're queens. Where are our husbands? Now, if you just want to call yourself a queen, that's fine, but it's not accurate. All right. So make sure if you are in the dating market, you know what end you are seeking and you're not just out here just trying to figure it out. Gosh, the woman who called in when she was over 40, we don't have the same leverage. That's why I implore the young women to prioritize it when you're young. Because, like Kevin told this older woman who was divorced twice and saying all this laundry list of what she wanted, he said, I don't debate older women. You don't have the leverage to ask what you're asking for. And it can be very harsh to hear, but ladies, that's just how men look at it. All right. So, for those of us who are proud pick me's, don't let the insults bother you. Men are insulted all the time. And the men that we admire and respect, it just blows right past them. So, if you want marriage and relationship, ladies, I hope this was helpful for you. Um, we can get a lot of attention, and that can come in many forms. It can come in intimacy, it can come in money, it can come in time, it can come in all of that. But you have to be able to determine if that intention, if that attention has an intention behind it. All right. Disciple one says, remember, queens can move anywhere on the board, but only when the king is captured, the game is over. All right. Well, we will end with that. Let me see what you all are saying on Instagram. I see you all coming through. Thank you all so much. I see you all on TikTok. Thank you so much for all of the support. Let me thank the sponsors of today's stream. We've got Christopher Williams with the $9.99. We've got Suave D with the $5, and then again with another $5. Thank you for the $10 combined. Discipled One with the $20. Thank you so much, our stream sponsor. And also Messy Michonne with the $9.99. I'm really grateful. This is my heart. I worry about what happens when the matriarchs amongst us are no more. And once you get older, ladies, you really start looking at things differently. So I'm going to always encourage those of you who want marriage and family to prioritize it. So the Wives Club will be here for you all probably about once a month whenever the Kevin Samuels channel has new content. I like to give my take as an older woman because I do believe that older women should teach the young. So hopefully this was helpful. Hopefully those of you all who want marriage and family find some encouragement here. All right. Project Queen says, thank you so much. Sounded advice. Thank you, sweetheart. Blessings to you. All right, everybody. Well, with that, I'm going to go ahead and let you all have your evening. And I'll see you all next month for another episode of The Wives Club.